A lot of prologues are bad, and a lot of them shouldn't even exist. But the truly great ones, they do something that no first chapter could ever do. By the end of this video, you're going to know the prologue traps that you definitely need to avoid. You'll know the 7 ways to pull off a good prologue, and you'll also know whether your prologue truly earns its place in your book. Hi, I'm John Matthew Fox. I'm an editor who helps writers with courses and coaching. And let's get started right away with the first danger to avoid. It is the 20-page prologue. Listen, if you gain nothing else from this video, please remember this point. Prologues need to be short. And I'm not talking like 10 pages short. I'm not talking even like 5 pages short. I'm talking about like 1 to 2 pages. And I know some of you are already like gonna be up in my business in the comment section being like, what about this exception? And I'm like, okay, yes, there are exceptions, but 97% of prologues are very short. You want an example of an exception? Okay, Ken Follett, The Pillars of the Earth. His prologue is, gasp, wait for it, 6 pages long. Now, that's an eternity in prologue time, but guess what? His book is 1,000 pages. So if you are writing an 1,000-page book, you too can write 6-page prologue. But if you have a normal-sized book, I would recommend the 1 to 2-page prologue. The Da Vinci Code basically follows this rule. Its prologue is 3 pages long. So, you know, I mean, still pretty short. So if you want to write a short prologue, but you're not sure how to do something that short, one of the techniques I frequently see to pull it off is called a flash forward technique. The prologue talks about a moment later on in the book, and then the first chapter goes back to, all right, here's where we are now. Like, look at the prologue in Donna Tartt's The Secret History, which, by the way, may I add, is 2 pages long. It opens with a confession that Bunny is dead and the group has killed him. And then the novel goes back in time and talks about these characters at this university and how they're studying Greek together and works its way toward the eventual murder. All right, now we're going to talk about danger number 2, which is the ancient past. Does your prologue open with the protagonist's great-grandfather, or the founding of the kingdom, or wizard wars from 3,000 years ago? The question you have to ask yourself is whether you are handing readers a backstory when they want the present moment story. And you should also ask yourself, like, am I writing the prequel or am I writing the real book? You might want to leave that prequel story, you know, for another novel in the future. Now, that said, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with starting with something that happened in the past. You just have to make sure that that past event connects really strongly to the story you're trying to tell in the present moment. Let's look at Tanya French's In the Woods. And side note, the prologue is 2 pages. 2. The prologue's about 3 kids that got lost in the woods decades ago. 2 of the kids were never seen again. 1 survived, and that character is the detective who is the main character in this present moment story. And this prologue works because those events in his past have a huge bearing on how he handles this case in the present. And also, another thing that makes this a prologue rather than a first chapter is that it's something that happens multiple decades ago, right? If you have a different time period or a different character, that's something that makes it into a prologue. Now, listen carefully. There is less than a week before the next Bookfox cohort starts. You should apply now because spots are limited and they do fill up. And just remember that you're going to come out of the lab holding the book that you've been dreaming about for years. So listen, stop dreaming, join us, and we're going to go on this journey together. The link is in the description, or you can just go to my website, Bookfox, and click on coaching. I bet you want to know what danger number 3 is, and I'm going to tell you right now. It is Chapter 1 in a trench coat. So if your prologue has the same protagonist, it has the same timeline, and it has the same tone, you're not writing a prologue. You're writing chapter 1. So just call it chapter 1. The definition of a prologue is that there is something different about it than the rest of your story. So it's got to be a different character. It's got to be a different timeline. It's got to be different stakes. So just try this. Rename your prologue as chapter 1 and see if it changes anything, right? If it works as a chapter 1, it's probably just chapter 1 and not a prologue. Now, if you're still struggling whether what you've written is a prologue or a first chapter, I would encourage you to use one of the most common prologue strategies of all time. And once I say it, you're immediately going to go like, yeah, I know what that is. It's called the Doomed Stranger prologue. You open with a very minor character who dies or vanishes or we never see again. And what this does is it creates the threat inside the storyline that your main characters are going to have to face in the future. So a simple example of this, you guys might already be thinking of it, is George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones. 3 Rangers beyond the wall meet the White Walkers. 2 of them are killed, and now we know the existential threat that's sort of hanging over everyone's head until the very end of the series. Or think about the opening of Jurassic Park, where we have that red shirt character who gets eaten by a raptor, we're like, oh, okay, there's danger here. Now, in the Game of Thrones example, that prologue is about plot. In the Jurassic Park example, that is more about just giving a sense of danger or excitement to keep us on the hook until, you know, the dinosaurs finally come and start eating people about halfway through the book. All right, are you ready for mistake number 4? Here it is. It is misleading genre. So a prologue ideally is setting up the reader for what the rest of the book is delivering. So if you start with sort of a grim or dark prologue, and then the rest of the book is sort of breezy YA banter, the reader's gonna be like, I feel a little bit cheated. Now, here's the thing though, a lot of prologues initially seem to be a very different tone than the beginning of the book. And why that is because whatever the pleasures of the genres are, whether you're writing, I don't know, mystery or horror or whatever it is, you're trying to deliver those pleasures right at the very beginning, right in the prologue. Because otherwise, people are gonna start reading your book and they're like, where's the dead bodies? Where is the fantasy world, right? They keep on waiting for the pleasure of your world, but if it's delayed, then you insert a prologue to sort of tease them with that information. And I'll give you an example from a TV show that I was recently watching called The Burrows. It has a prologue-like opening that happens a few weeks before the actual start of the show. And basically, I'm not giving away anything here, it's in the first couple of minutes of the show, we see this woman killed by this mysterious creature. Now, the whole rest of the episode is just interpersonal drama. There's nothing that would tell you, oh, this is horror. So they needed that prologue to establish right from the very beginning, oh, everyone, hey, here's the actual genre. It is horror. You're just kind of have to wait a little bit until we get to the horror parts, but it's coming, I promise you. So a prologue like this appears to mislead on genre, but really it's promising the true genre, and it's buying you time as a writer, buying you enough time so you can set stuff up and then get to the juicy pleasures of the genre. This next one, I think a lot of you would suspect I would talk about it in this video, and I'm not going to disappoint you. It is number 5. The info dump. This is when your prologue contains a history lesson or all the details about a certain race of creatures in your book, and it's basically world building that is cosplaying as story. Now, most people try to avoid the info dump by focusing on plot, which that's a great decision, right? And 98% of the time, that is a very good decision to make. However, if you want an alternative to starting right away in a scene with plot, I'm going to give you one. And the strategy I'm going to give you is called the atmospheric prologue. But I do feel I should warn you, this is probably like the riskiest strategy in this entire video, so only use it at your peril. So let's look at Patrick Rothfuss's The Name of the Wind. This prologue is a single page long. Short, see, what am I telling you? And it starts off just describing a silence in 3 parts, and then he describes these 3 different types of silence inside this bar. Now, most writers who try to pull this off, it's not going to work, right? I told you it was dangerous. But I think for him, it establishes the atmosphere and the mood of the book he's writing, and so it's working really well. But he does 2 important things which makes it go beyond mere atmosphere building. First, he introduces us to a character, this character with flame red hair. And then 2, we learn about this character that he is waiting to die. So that's a little bit of anticipation for the reader, like, why is he waiting to die? And how is he going to die? Part of a prologue's job is to create expectations and intrigue. And if you only have atmosphere in your prologue, it's not doing that job. So he just has these 2 little tweaks that sort of like help you anticipate that something's about to happen. Basically, a good prologue leaves you with questions. A bad prologue gives you the answers you didn't ask for. Moving right along to danger number 6. This is the cliched prologue. So there are some genres out there where the prologue is pretty formulaic. I mean, crime novel? Let me guess, there's going to be a dead body in the prologue. But the danger of that kind of formula is that the reader might roll their eyes and be like, oh, I've seen this before. This doesn't seem to offer me anything new. So let's look at 2 examples of this type of prologue and let's see how they pull it off and make it good. The first one is Delilah Owens' Where the Crawdads Sing. The prologue opens with Chase Andrews' dead body being found in the marsh, and so the whole book is the question of who put him there. But it doesn't start right away with the body. It starts with a description of the difference between the marsh and the swamp. And the description between these 2 bodies of water extends for the whole book as kind of a metaphor for human nature. So it starts with sensory details, and then only at the end of the prologue do we finally discover that dead body. Yay for sensory details. Yes, you should always put more sensory details into your book. You are immersing the reader into your universe. Let's also look at Ordinary Grace by William Kent Kruger. A kid named Bobby Cole is killed on the tracks that summer, and that leads to a whole rash of other killings too. So yes, the prologue does tell you about this kid who's been murdered, but it also opens up some really big philosophical questions like, how can God allow suffering, and why does God's grace sometimes feel awful? Plus, it also teases you that this kid's murder is the first of the murders that summer. So it gives the reader something to look forward to, like, oh, there's going to be a lot more murders. And now for our very last point, which I kept until last because I feel a lot of writers stumble into this problem. It is danger number 7, being cryptic. So deliberately being cryptic to the reader is a huge turnoff at the beginning of a book. Just remember that your prologue is a place to draw the reader in, and good mysteries are not created by withholding information, but by delivering a lot of information, because that information will raise new questions. Now, what is the opposite of a cryptic prologue? It'd probably be a prologue that's speaking directly to the reader, telling them exactly what is happening and what is going on. And I see this technique really frequently in prologues, and I'm going to give you 2 examples. One would be N.K. Jemison's The Fifth Season. It opens right away with the narrator addressing the reader. Let's start with the end of the world, why don't we? And also telling the reader, but you need context, and starts telling us about this land and what happened. A second example would be Eric Morgenstern's The Night Circus. The prologue here, which is 2 pages, by the way, puts us outside the circus tents and lets us see this circus arriving. And it's saying it's talking directly to the reader the whole time. You see this, you see that. When you are speaking directly to the reader, it's a very intimate tone, and the reader's never going to feel like you're deliberately being cryptic or sort of withholding information from them. No, this is a narrator who is speaking to the reader. So it's a really good way to combat being too cryptic. Just remember that this is your absolute last chance to join Bookfox Lab. You can apply using the link below, or go to my website, Bookfox, to apply. And hey, I look forward to helping you with your book. Also, keep on writing those very short prologues. I am confident that you're going to nail it on the page and start your book off with a bang. Happy writing.